unlimited class. Now let's change the pace and go back. It was in April of 1942, April 18th, as a matter of fact, when 16 bombers like this one took off the deck of the USS Enterprise, and Jimmy Doolittle and 80 men made their way to the famous Doolittle Raid. Oh, no, I'm sorry, what did I say? Enterprise, no, that's the USS Hornet, that's right. Thank you, Bob. Okay, listen, it was the Hornet. Oh, that was a big slow bomb. At any rate, their raid proved to the enemy that we could breach their defenses, something that the enemy said would never happen. Doolittle did it from the deck of an aircraft carrier. It was nearly a suicide mission. Because of the extra distance they had to fly to get to the target, and because they were spotted by a Japanese fishing boat, they knew that they would probably crash land. Prior to that time, the morale in America, because of the shellacking we had taken since Pearl Harbor and subsequent battles, morale was in the dumps in America. But Doolittle's raid proved to be the turning point. Here's what the enemy saw. Look low and to your left. Here comes Panchito, B-25 Mitchell bomber, to show you what the Japanese would have seen on that fateful day, April 18, 1942. You will listen to the powerful sounds of 3,400 horsepower. It is the sound of freedom. Doolittle and his crew came in over the wave top, and then climbed for altitude over their major targets and kept going. The damage to the enemy was minimal. This is just the way it looks. Gain altitude and open those bomb bay doors. On the front of the aircraft, a crew of 5. Now, continuing on, as the airplane Panchito makes its turn back to show center, the crew will show you the business side of this Mitchell bomber as it's called. Now, if you have a camera, be prepared to zoom in on the open bomb bay, where you can see a full load of 500-pound general demolition bombs. Then after Panchito lands, come by the plane and look into the bomb bay and get a closer look at these bombs. You will be delighted that these bombs are covered with the signature of dozens of World War II combat B-25 crew members, including 18 of the original Doolittle Raiders. There's Dan Friedkin and the very rare Bearcat, very fast, very agile, used by other countries in their wars as a prop-driven airplane. He was advanced to the B-21 and there, which the B-25 showed you the bomb bay doors open. Now, the other great capability of the B-25 was strafing and bombing. The B-25 was widely used for low-level dive bombing, especially against Japanese naval targets. Watch a Panchito. It will simulate a dive bombing attack on a Japanese warship. The attacking B-25 would be strafing the ship as it approached. Then it would drop a 500-pound or 1,000-pound bomb on the ship as it passed over. And by the way, so devastating was the firepower of this B-25 that camera-mounted B-25s would show the enemy crew members on the ships jumping over the side rather than take the devastation this airplane considered. They would rather take their chance to start to test the water than watch their ship blow up around it. On this next pass, this will be the level bomb run at 100 to 200 feet. Panchito's crew is now approaching for the level bomb run. You watch the bomb bay doors open as she nears show center. The original design of the B-25 was for a medium altitude level bombing. But as we will describe to you in a minute, the crews in the field actually modified the aircraft into a much more potent weapon. Yes, it was the Macon sergeants that improvised out in the war zone, was later copied by the factory to give the B-25 their B-4 firepower. The original design mission of the medium bomber was mainly for level bombing, with machine guns installed only to defend the airplane. This machine guns were strafing ground and sea targets, were in fact, as I mentioned, field modifications that made the B-25 a very effective weapon at attacking airfields, shipping, trains, and troop emplacement. Now, by the time the J model were being manufactured, the fixed guns were factory installed. The later Stafford version of the B-25 had no less than 12 forward firing machine guns for this strafing role. You can imagine 4 of these B-25s approaching the Japanese 10-meter that's reaching up like over 200 miles an hour with 50 caliber guns blazing and bombs raining down from the bomb bay door down into the enemy area. Now keep your eye on the airplane. They're going to angle out over our right shoulder for the photo pass. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please get your cameras ready as Panchito's crew brings her around for the signature photo pass. Then as she nears Air Show Center, the crew will show you the beautiful profile from wingtip to wingtip of the North American-built B-25 Mitchell bomber. Over your right shoulder, some 10,000, a little less than 10,000 when these were built. This was built in Kansas City by the North American Aviation Company. This bomber was faster in a dive in the early part of World War II than any of the fighters that we had ready for combat. Later, some of the field sergeants actually put on a 75mm cannon. The parts that you see here are from short exhaust stacks from the right-built engine. That gives it that barking sound, a very distinct sound. You could close your eyes and know that the B-25 was coming by that very distinct sound. Been used in a number of motion pictures, including 30 Seconds Over Tokyo, a 1940 release starring Spencer Tracy, Robert Stack, Van Johnson, and other great Hollywood stars depicting what Doolittle went through in preparation for that race. All right, coming in from your left now, the 7th and final photo pass. Coming back to give you one more chance to get that signature photograph. Robert Picton, also one of the stars in that motion picture. Do me a favor, try to find that in your TV guide or where you rent motion pictures, either through your home TV or the stores that are out there. The movie, a 1943 release, 30 Seconds Over Tokyo. The book came out in 1942, the movie came out in 1943. It is still entertaining, it is still timely, and not only is there Hollywood footage in that motion picture, but actual combat footage as well. And it was expertly cast because Spencer Tracy and Jimmy Doolittle were both about 5'5". They were both very feisty. They didn't take any stuff off of anybody. They were both Irish. And Spencer Tracy did a great job of portraying Jimmy Doolittle. Now Doolittle, because most of the airplanes crashed, landed, some of the crew members perished, some were captured and made prisoners, some were executed, some went and flew on to Russia and were interned. As they came back to the United States, they rotated back into combat. Here's what Doolittle thought. He thought the raid was a failure. He thought that he would come home and be court-martialed. You know what happened? He came home. He wasn't court-martialed. He was given the Medal of Honor, and he was one of the few officers that was able to skip the rank of full colonel. He went from lieutenant colonel to general in one step. That's how significant the Doolittle Raid was in changing the course of World War II in the Pacific. The Emperor and the admirals told their people, told their citizens, you will never be molested on our shores. And when Doolittle Raiders got through, the bombs that they dropped were not that much damage. But it changed the whole strategy of the Japanese Navy. They extended their perimeter of defense way out to the Midway Islands, leaving their coast a little more vulnerable, spreading out their naval fleet, getting ready to be defeated in the Battle of Midway. And that was the turning point. From losing the war, being defeated, and being low on morale, America had a chance to stand tall and to lift their heads high again just because of the sacrifices of those 80 men. We pay tribute to them on the anniversary of that race. April, when all of the individuals who own or operate B-25 in the United States go to a predetermined city, congregate, and bring as many of the healthy Doolittle Raiders in to enjoy the aircraft and to take rides and fly the aircraft as they possibly can. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to change the pace from the world of bombers of World War II to the world of helicopters.